Morning, Natalie.
Good morning, Gordon.
Morning. Right. And Natalie, I've invited you along to talk about why should we become a carer? Because you work for Lincolnshire County Council, but you're also mainly a parent carer and a carer. And so
Yes.
I thought, who better to talk to than yourself for informing our families about the need, because I feel that there is a need to be registered as a carer.
There
Um,
is.
and there is a confusion as to, but I'm a parent, so why should I be a carer? Because or whatever. We understand being a carer for elderly family, but we don't necessarily see ourselves as carers for our children. Would you say that's a sort of a fair summary?
I think that is a very fair summary. And it's a shame, really, I think,
Yeah.
because I think parenting is hard, is really hard as just for, just normal children, if you like. But parenting for a child that's got either special needs, disabilities, takes extra steps and extra time and extra money and extra emotion. Everything is extra.
Yeah.
And I think I think it's important for people to understand that, and it helps them hopefully feel like they don't have to achieve everything that society tells us they have to achieve, and and also that they get the support that they need, because nobody gives you a book to say how to be a parent or even how to be a parent carer. They don't say, here you go,
Yeah.
that's off you go. You've got your manual now. You should be okay. You don't even get any of that as a parent.
No.
So just to get further help, I think is super, super important, because you feel that you can manage things like a little bit better then.
Yeah, yeah. So what would qualify you to actually say that you're a carer rather than just a parent?
That's a tricky one. That's a very tricky question. And generally, in the fact that obviously I work for the Carers Service, Lincolnshire Carer Service, we try to think of it as anything over and above parenting, which is tricky because every parent is different.
Yeah.
Um, but I think you've got those norms in you that you kind of understand, and when you're listening about being a parent carer, and it's probably easier to define yourself as a parent carer the older the child gets, because there's an expectation that the child will do certain things for themselves by the time they get to 7, for example.
Yeah.
So it's about understanding what further things are required. So, for example, we get a lot of parent carers coming and speaking to us because their child, who's 7, is still in nappies because they can't, they've got incontinence issues. So that to me is definitely somebody who's a parent carer, not just a parent, because you wouldn't expect that of a normal child of a 7-year-old.
No.
And there's also behaviours. You would expect most children to start being able to dress themselves by the time they get to infant school or primary school. And if they can't, then you're a parent carer. But but it's different for everybody. And that's the point. And if you've got a child with special needs or disabilities, then your need will be different to the person that sat next to you. So it's a case of calling through, I think, and having that discussion.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I mean, one of the things that I try and focus on when talking to the parents is find somebody, if you don't know already, a family member or friend who has a child of the same age, and just say, what is it you do for your child?
Mm.
What is it you do in a normal day? Because we will get into a habit of making our own adjustments for our own children.
Hmm.
And sometimes we don't actually realize just how many adjustments we are making. And so we
No.
need to ask the question, what is it I do? And it's got to be the similar age because of a similar age, I am doing twice as much as you. Is that
Mm.
normal? Am I
Mm.
doing something wrong, or this is what that child needs, and therefore, for me, you are a parent carer,
Yeah.
because you're no longer just parenting. You
No.
are definitely doing a massive caring role
Mm.
alongside the parenting, which
Yeah.
we tend to forget we're doing that, I think,
Yeah.
just because um, we get used to making the adjustments. It's our day-to-day life, isn't it?
Mm. And I think as a parent, from a you know from a very young age whether your child has got any needs or further, and so you make those small adjustments and they just become part of your life. They're
Yeah,
just normal for you, and it's really difficult to understand what isn't normal, if you like, for want of a better word. And as you say, going to speak to a family friend or somebody with a child of the same age is a good way to measure whether you think you're doing more or not. But if you called through to the Lincolnshire Carer Service, for example, and had a discussion about the support that you give your child throughout a normal day, it, just having that conversation makes you realise how much more you do as well.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting.
So that brings us quite nicely on to how do you actually register yourself as a carer, and is it important to register yourself?
Hmm. Okay, so register. There is no registry as such, and that's because people's caring role change as they go through, and it's really hard to maintain that. But to call through and get yourself onto our books, onto our system, I think is super important. There is a number, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. Hopefully, you'll be able to put that in your blurb. Um, uh, but there's also an online form through the Lincolnshire County Council website as well. Just put Lincolnshire Carers Service, and there's a form there. Fill it in. It goes off. Somebody will call you. Um, but as of the reason why you want to be there is a whole plethora of things that are out there available to carers, parent carers as well, like yourself, like Pact.
Yeah,
There's loads of stuff, and people you just don't know it, and you'll never know it. You'll never know everything that's out there.
yeah,
Um, and there's support groups as well. It's just good to go and have a chat with somebody else and find out how they're dealing with things,
yeah,
and to me, that's the best support you can get. Talking to somebody else who's got the same as you, going to these events. I saw you not so long ago. We went to a carers first event, and I talked to four different parent carers. All of them have slightly different things going on in their lives. But I was like, oh, I could take that. I can take that. I can use that. And similarly, they were going back to us, oh, I hadn't thought about that, and was writing things down. And it gets your things working in your brain, and you can then change it and help yourself, really.
yeah, yeah. And one of the things that I think is really important, but I'm not necessarily sure if it is or not, but I keep saying to everybody they need to register themselves at the GPs as a carer as
Oh, yeah. Super important, that is.
okay,
Definitely.
fine.
Well, I've registered myself as
Yeah,
a parent carer. For and as the child gets older, it's even more important. But you're able to go and have a conversation with your doctor about that child, which you would do anyway when they're really young. But the older they get, the more rights they have, and you
yeah,
can't have that conversation with them. So it can become really tricky when they're about 14 or 15. But also for me, they know that I'm the carer. So if I message about myself or my daughter, my doctors are very good. They
yeah,
will help me immediately. They will push me forward because they know I'm a carer for my daughter. So for me, in our surgery, they're really good as a parent carer.
yeah.
So I would recommend that straight away to everybody because it's super, it just works well for both you and your child, really.
Yeah, and I think that's the important part to recognize is that being registered as a carer, it's not necessarily the benefit it gives your child, it's the benefit it gives you to be able
Mm,
to support your child if things
mm,
are going wrong.
mm.
Um, uh, I know that we um, registered as carers and we got a carers assessment. And in with that carers assessment was if anything was to happen to myself or my wife, there was a plan in place for 48 hours that they just needed to make one phone call and our children would be looked after
Mm.
because it would be the right people contacted based on the assessment and the conversations we've had to put things in place. Is that still something that's
There is emergency response plans. Yes,
yeah.
they are. They're still going and they're still there. I have one as well. So, I know that if both my husband and I were to be in the car at the same time, had an accident, and won't be able to look after my daughter, there is certainly I've given that out emergency contacts and emergency names, and that's still there, and it will be for the rest of the time until I change it.
Yeah.
And it does give people that peace of mind. And I don't know if you've had them, but the Lions little things that you put in the fridge so that and you put all their medication
All right.
information in. So and you put it in the fridge and you get a little sticker that you stick on the door. And that tells anybody if they were coming into the home that there's somebody in the house that's got that need for medication and they need to go to the fridge and take it out the fridge, and that should, providing the parents kept that up to date, should have all the information of all the medication that's
Yeah.
required and
Yeah.
stuff if you weren't able to. So there are lots of other things as well, or just simply put sticking. Some people like to just stick their emergency contacts on their fridge.
Yeah. 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 And you
You
get a
know,
nice little key fob thing
you
with
do,
it in
yeah.
there as well, uh,
Yes, you do.
which is always there. But we've got we have a separate basket in our cupboard with all the medication in, so that you go there and then you've got the prescription um,
Next to it,
all
yeah.
written out and everything else because it's so important. You just don't know,
No.
and these things have to be readily available. And it's just nice to be able to have that conversation as to how do I put this in place, really, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is. It is. And to know that somebody is going to is going to help if you can't,
Mm.
is really super important. It does take the weight off some people's mind, about that as well. So
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. So just to, I get confused,
Mhm.
and I think I've got my head around it. The carer services through Lincolnshire County Council
Yes.
and Carers First, are they one of the same?
So the Lincolnshire Carer Service is Lincolnshire County Council, as you said, and that's the overarching service. Um, They employ two contractors to work their service, and that's Serco for the front end, and that's at the Customer Contact Centre, and it's Carers First, who then do either the assessments or the community stuff, and they do all the events and things and do the support groups and things like that. So it's split into two.
Yeah,
So the first time you would call through to Lincolnshire Carer Service, you'd go through to uh, the telephone conversations, and people have a telephone conversation which usually is about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And that would be looking to see if they can meet their need there and then. Let's have a conversation about your care and role. And it's usually those people that are just new, maybe new to their caring role, or they're not really sure what they were looking for in their caring role. So they'll have that kind of early conversation, and what they'll do is try and help. Either that's through offering the support groups, it can be employment, it can be benefits, and it can be just, well, all sorts really. There's all sorts of services out there that's available to people, so depending on their needs. So they'll go through that with them, and then that person will get a copy of that documentation if they're able to meet that need and everybody's happy with that. And
mm,
then the carer service will call them back in about 10 to 12 weeks just to check on how they're doing, make sure that everything's all the same and everything's fine. However, if at that point of the call, at the start call, that they can't meet that need and things are in a different place and they need more support, that's when then it'll pass to carers first, who will then either go and do a face-to-face visit, or they'll do a Teams visit or a telephone visit, whatever the person wants. and they'll go through the carers assessment, which is a lot more detailed, and that's probably what you've had in the past
Yeah.
that you was talking about, Gordon. So, and then from that, de de dependent on what that need is dependent on what they can then offer further on along that line. And
Yeah.
that could be anything from helping them apply for a loan, if you like, or apply for funding, or advice and information that they know more local information, or it could go to a, a carer's budget where the only need there is, for example, they might feel that they need to get some respite, and it could be that actually for that person, a gym is the respite. They need to go to a gym. They want to stay healthy in their caring role. They're struggling to do that, and it could be that there's a budget assigned to that gym membership to help them pay for that.
Yeah.
So but as I say, it all depends on the individual completely. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really good. Um, so I think looking at my list here that I've got to loads of questions to ask you, I'm going to try and break it down into three different videos,
Okay.
so that we don't get too much information out at once and people miss it.
Okay.
So we'll just break that down. That's really, really helpful. I think that sort of explains why should you be a carer,
Mm.
quite nicely. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
So
Thank
we'll
you.
stop this video here, and
Yeah.
then we'll come back and do another one in a few minutes, and hopefully everybody will understand why we're doing that. If
Okay.
not, they can tell me. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
See you in a minute.